Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely dismantle pretty much everything you thought you knew about making money. Let's dive right in and demystify modern wealth creation by completely shifting our mindset away from that traditional idea of just renting out our time. We're going to be looking at the insights of Naval Ravikant, who is a legendary entrepreneur and investor, and he broke down exactly how literally anyone can engineer their own financial freedom.
Now, what's really fascinating about this famous quote is Naval's core premise that wealth isn't actually about luck. It's really not a lottery ticket. It is, in fact, a highly learnable skill. I mean, think about it. If you took Naval, stripped him of all his money, and just dropped him on a random street in any English-speaking country, he firmly believes he'd be wealthy again within 5 or 10 years. Why? Because getting rich is about knowing what to do, who to do it with, and when to do it, rather than just endlessly grinding out hours.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to build the formula for financial freedom layer by layer, starting with wealth as a skill, uncovering specific knowledge, embracing accountability, harnessing leverage, and finally, playing long-term games.
Okay, Section 1. Wealth is a skill. Making money is a skill you learn, not a lottery you win. This first step requires us to really stop viewing wealth as just a simple byproduct of hard work alone. Because look, you can work 80 hours a week doing backbreaking labor in a restaurant, but that alone is not going to make you rich, right? Yes, hard work absolutely matters, but it has to be directed in the right way. Before you grind, you have to know exactly what you're working toward. And Naval's own life perfectly validates this. He didn't start out with some massive trust fund. He went from being a latchkey kid and a poor immigrant from New Delhi who just hid out in the library in Queens to becoming a highly successful tech founder and an early investor in giants like Twitter and Uber. He learned the skill of wealth, proving you can too, no matter where you're starting from.
But to play the right game, we have to clearly define these terms, because honestly, most people are totally confused about what they're actually chasing. Wealth is what you really want. These are assets that earn for you while you sleep. Think of a factory, a computer program, or investments. Money, on the other hand, is just how we transfer that wealth. It's social credits, basically an IOU from society for value you've provided. And then there's status. Status is just your ranking in the social hierarchy. It's this exhausting old monkey tribe game where literally putting someone else down is the only way to move up. If you spend your whole life just renting out your time for money or fighting over status, true financial freedom is always going to elude you.
Moving on to Section 2, finding specific knowledge, escaping competition through authenticity.
If you really want to get paid uniquely well in this world, you have to provide society with something it desperately wants but doesn't even know how to get yet. And you do this by escaping competition through authenticity. If you're just copying other people, you're always going to be replaceable. Instead, you need to follow your genuine, innate curiosity, not just whatever happens to be trending in the market right now. Specific knowledge is that weird, highly unique combination of traits from your DNA and your upbringing. It's the stuff that feels like play to you, but looks like absolutely grueling work to everybody else. Maybe it's a natural talent for sales, an obsessive personality for reading sci-fi, or a deep understanding of game theory.
But remember, specific knowledge isn't static. It's this progressing, ever-evolving combination of your traits. You actually have to keep shifting in redefining your specific niche until you are undeniably the absolute best in the world at it. The absolute beauty of this kind of knowledge is that it can't be taught in a standard classroom, which means it can't be outsourced or easily automated by a computer. Because if society can train you to do something, you know what? It can train someone else to replace you.
All right, Section 3, embracing accountability, taking business risks under your own name.
Because here's the kicker. Knowledge alone isn't enough to get you there. You could literally have all the unique skills in the world, but if you don't step out of the shadows, you're not going to reap the rewards. Taking risks under your own name can be terrifying, for sure. You risk failure, and yeah, you risk public humiliation. But let's look at the reality of the modern world for a second. The downside is actually incredibly limited. We don't have debtors' prisons anymore. If you fail with high integrity, society will forgive you. But if you succeed while bearing that accountability, society is going to reward you massively with responsibility, equity, and eventually leverage. You basically have to be the captain who's fully willing to go down with the ship if you ever want to own the upside of the voyage.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, the power of leverage, multiplying your efforts and judgment. This right here is the true secret to scaling wealth. Once you have specific knowledge and accountability in place, leverage is the ultimate force multiplier that detaches your physical time from your earning potential. Think of the real estate industry as this progressive story of leverage. So a laborer getting paid $15 an hour, they have zero leverage. Their physical input exactly matches their financial output. The next level up is a general contractor who manages a bunch of laborers. They take on more accountability and use that leverage to earn, let's say, $50,000 a project. Then you have a real estate developer utilizing capital to buy properties and hire contractors, potentially making $1 million in profit. But a tech founder in the real estate space, someone building a platform like Zillow or Redfin, they combine massive capital, elite labor, and code to create billions of dollars in upside. Every single step up demands more accountability and specific knowledge, but that leverage creates exponential wealth.
So let's quickly break down those three types of leverage. First, labor. That just means humans working for you. It's the oldest form, but let's be honest, it's incredibly messy and requires massive leadership skills. Then there's capital, which is money. That was the dominant leverage of the 20th century, heavily used by bankers and investors, and it scales very well. But both labor and capital are what we call permissioned leverage, meaning someone literally has to decide to follow you or someone has to give you their money. But today, the world has moved on to the ultimate egalitarian tool, the permissionless leverage of code and media.
Seriously, just think about the explosive power of code and media for a second. You do not need anyone's permission to write a book, record an explainer, or write software. Books, media, movies, and code are products with absolutely zero marginal cost of replication. This means you can create a piece of software one single time, and it allows an army of robots packed in data centers somewhere to work for you tirelessly while you sleep. That is exactly the leverage behind almost all the newly rich people of this generation.
And finally, Section 5, playing long-term games, executing the formula over time. So now that we have the formula, how do we actually execute this throughout an entire career? Well, you have to play long-term games with long-term people. Why? Because all the real returns in life come from compound interest. Now, this obviously applies to capital, but it equally applies to your reputation and your business relationships. When you work with people you deeply trust for a decade, negotiations become incredibly simple, and that compounding trust yields massive dividends. And conversely, if you realize a project or a relationship just isn't a long-term fit, you got to move on quickly so you can find the things you can truly invest in for decades. Because you're now building toward being a highly leveraged worker, you must totally disconnect your inputs from your outputs. When you have leverage, your judgment is infinitely more important than how many hours you actually clock in. Think about it. If your judgment is just 10% better than the competition's, society will gladly pay you hundreds of millions of dollars to steer the ship because that small difference in judgment is amplified across all your leverage. You want to earn with your mind. Let your good decisions earn for you rather than exhausting your physical time.
To force this mental shift, Naval actually did something kind of crazy. He set an aspirational personal rate of $5,000 an hour. And he did this long before he was actually wealthy. The idea is, if you value your time at an absurdly high rate, you begin to ruthlessly guard it. If fixing a broken speaker or arguing with an electrician saves you less than your hourly rate, you just ignore it. If outsourcing a task costs less than your hourly rate, you outsource it, period. You simply will never be worth more than you think you are worth.
I want to leave you with this final thought to really reflect on your own daily actions. Take a hard look at how you spend your energy. Are you building specific knowledge, actively seeking accountability, and creating permissionless leverage to create wealth? Or are you getting caught up in that old, exhausting monkey tribe game of tearing others down just to elevate your own social status? Remember, wealth creation is a positive-sum game where everyone can actually win. Status is a zero-sum game. Choose your game wisely, because the one you play is ultimately going to define your life. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I seriously hope this changes how you value your time starting right now.